Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. In this episode, we dive deep into the realms of personal growth, life vision, and the power of understanding your why with the return of a very special guest, Aaron Potratz. Aaron, a seasoned therapist and one of the dynamic forces behind the Shrink Think podcast, shares his insights and experiences on how to live a life in alignment with your deepest values and goals. Throughout the conversation, we explore the significance of self-awareness, the impact of our daily habits on our overall life direction, and the transformative power of asking ourselves the right questions. Whether you're feeling stuck in your New Year's resolutions, seeking to redefine your life's purpose, or simply looking to deepen your relationships, this episode offers practical advice and profound insights to guide you on your journey. Aaron also shares his personal approach to building a life vision plan that encompasses all aspects of life, from physical health to friendships, and how this plan has helped him and can help others lead a more intentional and fulfilling life. So if you're ready to take control of your life's direction and create a legacy of love, joy, and fulfillment, this episode is a must listen. Join us as we uncover the tools and mindset needed to transform your intentions into action and your dreams into reality. But before we hear from Aaron, I want to share a gift with you. You can now get my free guided meditations and hypnosis recordings. Both practices engage the brain and the central nervous system in ways that can lead to significant changes in perception, emotion, and health. They both facilitate changes in the mental state and physiological responses through focused attention and relaxation. Meditation often focuses on mindfulness and awareness without a specific goal beyond the practice itself, while hypnosis is typically goal-oriented, seeking to change specific thoughts, behaviors, or sensations. Currently, I have recordings on weight management, achieving success, and releasing anxiety. So click the link in the show notes to get the recordings. I am planning to add other recordings to focus on healthy relationships, self-confidence, and much, much more. So once again, to get those free recordings, just click the link in the show notes. All right, let's dive into the interview with Aaron. Well, hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of The Therapy Show. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and welcome back, my good friend, Aaron Potratz. It is awesome to have you back on the podcast.
Hey, Lisa, thanks for having me. I always love being here and looking forward to chatting with you today.
Yeah, me too. I get so excited when I knew that I was going to be able to talk to you today. And for those of you who don't know Aaron, he is one of the dynamic duo of the Shrink Think podcast, and he also has a private practice in Oregon, Washington. Gosh, I can't remember.
Oregon, that's right.
Oregon.
Yeah, Portland,
Okay.
Oregon area.
Awesome. And he's a member of the Sightcraft Network. What other amazing things are you doing that I haven't mentioned?
Trying to take over the world. No, that's Pinky in the Brain. Um,
Right.
I do joke sometimes. It's like, man, by the end of my career, I will be like, well, might as well run for president.
Yeah.
Like doing everything else. No, I've got the podcast. I've got the a group practice. I do consulting for therapists, and I'm also doing some life coaching and putting together some courses this year. Just really trying to reach more people as much as I can with the gifts and talents and abilities that God has given me. So yeah, just looking forward to reaching more people this year and specifically doing more coaching. I want to affect people's lives individually beyond the therapy world and into, I think, because that kind of gets into people who like have like these significant problems, or like disorders or whatever. But I just want to help people in general. I think people who want to be more successful or improve little things in their lives, maybe get out of a little bit of the rut of like all the negativity and focus more on positive success, goal building, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, very cool. And when you say you're building out some classes, are those going to be in that arena of like things like that?
yeah, the one that I've been working on this year, I had a couple of people last year talk to me about like life vision kinds of stuff. And I was like, oh, I've been actually doing this just on my own for the last several years. And they were like, okay, tell me about it. And so I explained how I start with my why and develop out like, who am I and what's important to me in my life? Like essentially, who do I want to be at the end of my life? And then look backward onto this moment and then to develop some direction for my life. And they're like, wow, that's really good. I think I want to do that. So as I was talking to more people, I decided, I'm going to actually put together a course. I'm kind of building that out this year. I held a webinar last month and a co-working session to kind of begin building that out with an initial group of people, and then offered them to join a cohort this year where I will build further out more of like some of the accountability structures and speak to some of the different components on it, like obstacles that get in your way, motivation, just different things that you'll have to deal with throughout the year. So that's been really fun because ultimately for myself, it's like just stuff that I do within myself that I want to focus on. And I'm realizing like people want to know this, they have the same struggles and they want to know how I overcome those because I'm pretty diligent at trying to like find the answers to my problems and my questions. And I usually do. So that's been really fun. I'm really looking forward to putting that together this year.
That's really cool. I love that. And I know you and I are of similar mindset when it comes to living our life in alignment and being congruent in who we are and what we want to become in this world. And so when we were talking about this topic, I got really excited because I was like, "Ooh, I want to hear how Aaron approaches it because I think it's similar." And as we were, kind of getting ready for this episode, we were talking about a lot of people come into a new year like, fresh start. I'm going to achieve all these things. And right about when this episode releases, which is late February, early March, things start to kind of fall flat for them. Maybe they were if and I always come back to like people want to lose weight or that just seems to be or get healthy or eat differently or better and about 6 weeks in, 8 weeks in is when it starts to get harder for them and they lose their motivation. They lose what they thought we'll call willpower, and they fall a little bit flat. And you know what you and I talked about was you can only go but so long when the willpower kind of you're white knuckling it. But what keeps you going in the long term and is figuring out what your values are and what your priorities are. And so that's how I like to look at when I set a goal for myself is like you said, start with the why and then work backwards. So let's talk about that today because I know a lot of people are in that position where it's now 6, 8 weeks and they're like, this is harder. I'm eating more Doritos than I wanted. Pizza. I'm having pizza and drinking a little bit more. I said I wasn't going to do that this year, that this was going to be my year. And they're falling a little bit flat. And maybe they're just ready to throw in the towel. They're like, oh, I can't change. I won't change. I'll never change. People are right. So, gosh, I know where I start with people, but where would you start with somebody who's kind of going through this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thanks for that setup. I love that because I think a lot of people. Let me just say from the onset, you have good intentions. All of us have good intentions. We look at ourselves and our lives, and we see that there's a problem, and we don't want that problem to be there anymore. So we then say, okay, I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna, eat better, whatever, get more sleep. And those are good things. Those are very good things. But in essence, the way I would start with people is those are just things to do. And when they're disconnected from any kind of a purpose, meaningful purpose, then at some point when life throws some difficulty, which life has lots of difficulty, stress, tiredness, exhaustion, whatever it is, even just the ongoing, if you've been doing this for several months, you may be in a habit, but something else may kick in, like you just get tired of doing it and you have to use something beyond just your willpower to do the thing. And that's where this idea of, well, what is your why? Your why is your deeper motivation that there's a book, I'll try to remember it throughout this podcast at some point. It was like the 6 habits of growth, I think.
Mhm.
I can't recall the guy, but he said something like, motivation is something that you need to have available to you, your purpose or your why, so that you can summon it at any point in time when you need it. So
Mhm.
it's not just like willpower where it's like, okay, let's push, because where are you getting the strength to push? If you have your why, that is your strength.
Mhm. Mhm.
So starting with the why, like, okay, I would start with like I've got several questions that I ask people. Like, for example, what really matters to you in life? Not what should matter, but what does matter? Or what would bring you more joy and happiness in your life? Or what are your values? What issues do you care about? Or here are a couple deeper ones that we'll go into with people at the very end. What would you most like to accomplish in your life? And then what legacy would you like to leave behind? Now that's interesting because when I talk about this with people, sometimes people say, what do I want to accomplish? They'll think of like, okay, my career or my relationships or my kids or something like that. And those are fine, but those are also still too small. So, what do you most want to accomplish? It's like, who are you as a person and what is your purpose in life? It's kind of connecting to that, which I guess I'll pause there because I don't know if you have any thoughts or reactions to that because it is a very big, deep question, but it's also very accessible for every person.
Yeah. Oh, it's a big question. And it's interesting that you say that it I mean, gosh, I don't even know what to say. But when you ask that question, I kind of think of the three things that are most important to me right now, but they're also part of a bigger picture for me. So the bigger picture in my accomplishments, it's not so much career, it's not so much being a good mom, it's creating a legacy of love and like a family focus, you know? That seems very big and esoteric, kind of, but those little things every day that I do that help me walk in alignment to get there. So that's how I perceive that. Optimal and vibrant health is important to me. That's another big value, but that doesn't mean like every day I go to the gym and I eat my 120 grams protein, right? It's like the little things that I do every day that I need for optimal and vibrant health because I include mental health in there too, emotional health. But that's more of a theme for my life than it is like a goal for the day. Does that make sense?
And that's perfect. That's
Mhm,
a great example, and mine is very similar. It's
mhm,
related to love for sure. It's like I want to be a bright light and bring love and joy and compassion to the people, to all of my interactions wherever I go. So I like that we're similar in that
mhm.
in the sense that it's a very broad kind of a thing. But here's why that's so important because let's break this down into the different areas of your life, and you can even get into something very specific. For example, if we're going to talk about your career, how did you say your phrase again?
For my
Bring
career.
like love.
Oh,
No, it was like bringing love to.
well, I didn't say my career. I said my family. Oh, but I said accomplishment. So I said accomplishment. And honestly, that didn't have anything to do with my career. Isn't that wild?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
hmm Yeah.
So how did you phrase that? What like in your mind, what is that thing? Like, it's bringing love to
hmm
your in your mind, what are your words for that?
So it's bringing, I guess, bringing love to my family, to my community, my, I say my colleagues, I laugh because
Sure.
sometimes I don't feel a lot of love to them. Just being honest.
Right.
Um,
Which is why you got to bring it.
Right. So but it's a mindset, it's like I have to kind
Yeah.
of tap into that and I have to remember if that's what I want, I have to show up in that. How do I do that?
Do you know why that is so important to you? Why is bringing love important to you?
Because I think that's how it helps people. I mean, people need love. Gosh, it's like, I see it with my clients, all the time. So many times I have said, if this person just had somebody else in their lives to love them unconditionally, would a lot of this stuff go away? You know, a lot of this
And
angst, a
so
lot of
then
this. Mhm.
let's keep going with that. I'm
Mhm.
kind of using you as a little bit of a life coaching here.
I like it.
If you're okay with that, this is
Yeah,
kind of
go
like
for
on
it.
the spot.
This is fun
So why do you care about that so much? Why do you care about people needing love?
because it's so healing and it's what people need. We're humans. We need love
Why is that important to you specifically, Lisa?
because I'm loved and I know how much it's important to me.
And that came from someone or something. Did somebody or some people love you, and that did
Mm.
that impact you or transform your life?
Yes, of course.
And now you want to give that away to other people because you experienced how meaningful and impactful that was to you.
Yes. Yes.
So there's your why. You connected with your why. There's a whole story there, and you did a great job of really succinctly capturing that in just a couple of minutes here. So that's your why. Now you can bring that into every single area of your life. In your parenting, you can say, "Okay, I want to bring love." Can you bring love in your parenting in any situation? Whether your kids need a ride somewhere or they left their water bottle behind somewhere or their sports gear, or can you bring love in any of those situations?
Most of the time. Yeah, and I say most of the
Yeah, I
time
mean, like,
because, like, they're kids and it's like, oh, it's frustration. But if I can approach it from a place of understanding and love versus how dare you? Why did you do this? You're stupid. I would never say those things to my kids, but
right.
it's a very
You
different.
feel it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. But you can, so it has the ability, that is a why that is applicable to your parenting in
Hmm.
so many situations, right? It can inform how you go about doing things for your kids in any of those scenarios. What about with your colleagues? Is there a way or a place where you can apply that with your colleagues?
Yes, I'm sure. Haven't gone there
Yeah,
yet.
what would that look like to bring love to colleagues?
It would be patience. It would be a little bit more patience. It would be a little more understanding, a little more empathy.
Hmm.
Um, and I have those things. I think what is hard is, there when work gets stressful or you feel overwhelmed or something doesn't happen the way it should, and I quotes around should, it's frustrating. But at the same time, it's like we're just people trying to do our jobs, right?
That's
Um,
right.
so yes, that's a really good reminder.
So I love this because what you just said, I really like that you also brought in the shoulds with the air quotes, because that word I always put in air quotes because I'm like, why should you do something? People will say all the time with their goals or their resolutions, like, oh, I should get up early. Oh, I should go to bed. Oh, I should go to the gym. I should. But that just means you're doing something for some external standard, not because you want to. But what you just said is, if there's a situation where you can bring patience or you can bring understanding, or there's a situation where you're not sure what to do, you can always go back to what is my why. And if my why is I want to bring love to the world and to my interactions, well, now all of a sudden you've got to, well, what would that look like in this situation? And it's not just a should do this, it's a I want to, right? Because you have a deep desire that's connected with your story, some of your experiences around being loved and giving that love to other people. And now all of a sudden it's just figuring out, how am I going to do that in this scenario? So it's a little bit of like, when you start with that big why, then you can work backwards into, okay, what does that mean for today, tomorrow, the next day? You can build out some goals for that. But that important why and being connected to that is like a passion, or it's like a fire that's always available to you to give you motivation and direction.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate this conversation because it reminds me of, you know, sometimes I'm not congruent and I'm on myself. I want to be congruent. I want to show up as the person that I'm trying to become or I am becoming. And that person, and I don't think people think about this stuff. They don't think about, they just know like the here and now and their past experiences and, predict who they're going to be in that moment versus, hey, I can choose to be different in the future and moving forward. And I don't think a lot of
It's
people realize that.
Yeah, you're right. I think some people do, but yeah, very few people actually do kind of zoom out from life and take a higher view. And another way of saying that is also that they allow the circumstances of life to impact them and then to dictate the direction they're going in, instead of setting that course and then sticking to it regardless of the circumstances that life throws at you. Which is why, if you set a goal for yourself of like, I want to bring love, like I was talking with one guy about this, and he had something similar. He loves people, he wants to just help people and care for people, because just like you, somebody did that for him and that was really impactful, and so he now wants to give that to other people. And he was having trouble with going to the gym and getting some chores done. That's the specific thing. And so I said, okay, let's talk about your why. And he developed his why like this. And I said, how does that connect with getting your chores done and going to the gym? Right. Well, in the immediate day to day, if you're allowing the circumstances of life to dictate who you are and what you do, you're going to end up like this guy, which most of us, have areas of our life where that's exactly what happens. I don't want to get up. I stayed up too late last night, or I don't have the energy, motivation, even though I want to get to the gym or whatever. But when he was able to connect this with his why, it's like, I want to get up in the morning, or I'm going to go to the gym because
Mm.
when I do, I feel so much better. I feel grounded. I feel calm. I feel strong. I have more energy to then give to other people. And there are some people at the gym that I can also connect with or help. Or with the chores, it's these things weigh me down and bother me, and they're on my, on my mind. But when I get them done, then I am freed up emotionally to then focus on and give really freely to other people. But also, if my place is clean, then I can invite people over and have them in my space where I can entertain them and give them that, love
Mm.
or joy or whatever it is that I'm giving to the people around me. So all of a sudden, doing these innocuous things has a purpose, and that higher purpose is like transcending life. The circumstances of life now are not dictating what I do, but adhering to my why or staying committed to my why in every situation is the consistency that I can bring regardless of what life is throwing at me.
I want to share with you a fabulous offer from Therapy Notes. Have you ever felt swamped by endless paperwork and tangled schedules? Then step into a world of clarity with Therapy Notes. Hailed as the gold standard in electronic health records, Therapy Notes is your beacon in the dynamic realm of mental health care. With their round the clock 7-day live phone support, it's evident why they shine with a dazzling 4.9 out of 5 stars on trustpilot.com and Google. From effortless billing to streamlined scheduling, precise note taking, and state of the art telehealth, Therapy Notes is your all in one solution. And for the prescribers out there, they're ecstatic to introduce ePrescribe. And if you're switching lanes from another EHR, they've got your back. They will seamlessly migrate your demographic data at zero cost, ensuring you hit the ground running. So become part of the 100,000 plus mental health professionals community who've chosen Therapy Notes. And to embark on a 2-month complimentary journey, just tap the link in the show notes or use promo code Lisa at checkout at therapynotes.com. That's promo code Lisa, Lisa, at checkout at therapynotes.com. So dive into the Therapy Notes experience today and see why it's the talk of the town. Navigate with confidence and choose the best. Nice. Nice. I like that. I like how you were able to tease that out and really get to, the root of why that was bothering him. And I love how you use the word because, sometimes it's just asking that question, because why is this important to you? And then you kind of go, it's important to me because, and I don't think people, sometimes they just don't go that deep with themselves. They need somebody to like pull it out of them. So
Right.
that's
Have you
great.
heard of in I think it comes from business. There one of my buddies told me about this, and I've used this for years, but it's the 5 whys. It's you start with like, "Oh, I want to do this." And it's like, "Okay, why?" And then you get to like another layer, and then you're like, "Okay, well," and I did this with you a minute ago, right? It's
Yeah.
like, "Okay, well, why do you want to do that?" And you're like, "Come on, stop.
Yeah.
I already answered your question." It's
Right.
like, but it gets you deeper, deeper to the actual root of what's really important to you.
Yeah.
And I think if we can do that more with these goals and find out why we're really doing things at our core,
Mm.
then it actually does really help us to give much more direction and clarity.
Yeah. I really like that. I really like that. And it's very simple, just have to ask ourselves those questions and be willing to go deeper.
It's
Yeah.
challenging. You have to stay with it. It's
Mhm.
it's frustrating too. Even sometimes, like I'll talk with people and I'll ask them the why, and I feel like I'm like being rude or something. Like, sorry, Lisa, you didn't answer your question good enough. Like,
Right.
but that's not it. It's more
Yeah.
like, okay, that's a good thing, but why do you do that? Like,
Mhm.
it's just taking us closer to the target.
Yeah. That's important. It also kind of reminds me that I feel like you have to have permission from the person to ask that question. And I don't always have permission from my kids
Mm,
or I shouldn't say permission, but I can just tell they don't want to go there. So it's like, at what
yeah,
point,
true.
as a parent or as a colleague, do you just kind of recognize like, I don't have that permission to go there, but I know I can control how I react and respond to what is happening in the moment. And sometimes that's when you react and respond in a congruent way, that other person witnesses that, and then it gives you more space and they'll let you in a little bit more. So there's a lot of lessons here. And this is Aaron, this is kind of deep. Going deep. I love it.
Well, that's who I am.
Yeah.
I'm a deep thinker. I'm a deep person, but also when I try to make things practical as well.
Yeah.
And I've got some clients that will challenge me on that. I will talk about some really good things, and then they'll be like, "Okay, that's really good, and I agree or I believe this. Now, what do I do with that?" And I always am reminded of like, "Oh yeah, we got to make this practical." So
Right.
I've been trained to say like, okay, let's take these deep things, but then how does it connect back with this immediate stuff? Because yeah, you're right. Sometimes I mean, there's a time and a place for some of these questions, and sometimes you only start with one question, because the person is giving you permission to just to ask one why. And, oh, that's cool, see that why. And then maybe, a day or two or a week goes by or a couple months goes by, and you can ask them, hey, can I ask you a question? Why is it you do this thing? And that might be the second layer of why that you're getting to. And so over time, I think to me, in my friendships, in my relationships, I think I want to understand people. I want to know what their why is for doing things so that I can partner with them, or that's one way that I want to help people connect with themselves better, because I think people just feel better. They feel more like themselves. They look more like themselves when they're connected to their why, as opposed to I'm doing these things that are out of alignment, and it's like that's not really me. It's like you're right. That's not really you. So anyway, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, but
No, but I love it. I think it's some practical yet profound work, if people are open to it and if they're feeling stuck in their New Year's resolutions and they're trying to understand themselves better. This is a great conversation to reflect on, I think, is just to really figure out your why and, work backwards. Why is it important for you to lose the weight? Why is it important for you to get healthy? And then ask yourself why again. Why? Really
hmm
drill down to, what is it that is underneath all of that. And then, like you said, you want to make it something practical that we can give actionable tips on. So, I go back to when I'm working with somebody and we get to this point, we understand their why and they're kind of like, okay, well, how do I move forward with it? So what I like to suggest is, you know, I wouldn't suggest more than like 3 things you wanna work on, and from those 3 things, once you understand your why, break them down into actionable things that you can do every day that aren't too much of a stretch. So if you say, like, I wanna eat healthier. Well, first of all, you gotta define what that means to you, and you have to understand your why, but what are 3 things that you
right,
can
smart
do?
goals,
Yeah,
right.
like, what are 3 things that you can do every day that aren't it's not too big of a stretch that kinda gets you into that habit? Maybe it's, adding more vegetables to 2 of your meals, or, then the next one is, like, drinking your water, and then the 3rd one might be 1 processed meal option a day. So you're just setting these parameters for yourself, but they're doable, and because you can't, what do they say? Rome wasn't built in a day. You have to like build these
hmm
things up. I know that word habit stacking is like really big right now. I don't even really that's kind of what that sounds like to me. I haven't looked into what habit stacking is, but it's like just building on these habits that are going to get you to that living out that value authentically. So do you have any thoughts on that or, like, tips that you would give
Yeah,
people?
I think that's great, and that's very similar to what this is. Although I would say I'm kind of realizing maybe what I'm doing is more it feels more like an overhaul. It could be an overhaul of goals, because you said let's start with 3.
Mhm,
And I would say this is more of like let's set your life in the direction that it wants to go. And so this is actually going to set you up probably for several years of your life, if not even for the rest of your life.
mhm,
And I don't mean that to sound like overwhelming or intimidating to people, but it's more like when it's looking at your life where you are, and it's like this reevaluating. So I know you do a lot of like midlife, crisis or midlife growth, healing, recovery, whatever that, however you want to call it. So this would be great for those people who want to take a second look at their life and say, okay, where have I been? Where am I at? Where am I really actually going? We look at 10 areas of life that the author of that book breaks down. I had like, I think 7 of these. And then when I read that book, I just broadened it to these 10 categories because I liked them. But they're mental health, physical health, family, friends, finances, your mission in life,
mhm,
like your individual mission, the spiritual, and then adventure, learning, and growth. So you can look at all these areas of your life and say, where am I? Who am I? Where do I want to go in each of these areas? And how satisfied am I in all of these areas? And then you can begin to like build out, where do I want to start focusing? Do I want to you can create kind of a broad brushstroke for all of these, so that if your life is really moving in the wrong direction, you can direct it more broadly into the right direction, and then you can hone that in each of these different categories as time goes on. Or if you just want to just pick a couple of these categories, like your physical health. We talked about this earlier. Like, I really need to get my physical health in order. Great, let's start there. We can look at some of those other areas, but we can start with the physical health and define that out by saying, okay, who do you want to be, this year? What direction you want to go in? And what would that look like realistically for your life? What are some habits or some patterns that you need to build into your life? Not just like, I need to do this task, but in order to be this person at the end of this year, or to live out this life, I need to be somebody who says no to the Doritos, for example. So, what is that going to look like? It means maybe not shopping at the grocery store when I'm hungry. Maybe it means, throwing out all the bags of chips that I've got, or having somebody else in my household do the shopping for me if that's, a really big temptation. And you kind of you don't necessarily think about those things as being goals that you want to accomplish, but they're things that you might need to change within your lifestyle to accomplish those goals.
Yeah.
So the goal might be, I want to get rid of the Doritos, or I want to be healthier. But then you have some of these little habits that you're having to build and create into your life in order to accomplish that.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and it brought up an example that I would like to give, because I think a lot of people out there, and I'm speaking for me, but I'm also speaking for a lot of moms that I talk to, is over COVID, when our kids were home and doing virtual school. And I was just having this conversation the other day with somebody, I think at the gym, talking about how my nightly thing became, because I was working from home, my kids were home, everybody was home, that at like 4:30, quarter of 5 is when I started to have myself a drink, and I just started doing that every day. And at the time thought like it's just a way to help unwind. But what I noticed was it would mess with my sleep, and I'm just ha 1 drink. It was kind of a tall drink, but it would mess with my sleep. It would mess with
It was one
yeah, it was
giant
like one of those,
drink.
it was like this, my Stanley Cup, no, just kidding. It wasn't that
Yeah,
big.
that's right.
It wasn't the 40-ounce tumbler, but, I mean, it was enough to, like, just take I was in my mind saying, "I'm
Yeah.
taking the edge off of the day, and I gotta do this again tomorrow." I did it. I've been d When are we going back to normal? I don't know. All those thoughts. And, it just became a habit, but it was messing with my sleep, and then it was messing with the way that I was
Mm.
talking to my kids in the evening, and I knew in my heart I did not want to continue that pattern of showing up like that.
Yeah, this is out of alignment with that
Yeah,
bringing love thing that you
yeah,
talked about.
and so it only took, a couple of talking to myself and talking to my husband about it, and it's just like, "Okay, you just gotta stop that." But I enjoyed it, so I had to come up with a new habit, and I
And
still love.
the thing
Yeah,
is, it served a purpose
yeah,
too. That's the thing, is like, whether, we can take the judgment out of it and say for a period of time it really did serve a purpose in your life,
yeah,
and then you outgrew it.
right.
But we need to look at our lives and say, well, what else has been in my life that was serving a purpose at one time, and it no longer serves that purpose now?
Yes. Yeah, and so you could see that from, like, relationships that you have, you don't it doesn't have to be like food or alcohol. I mean, it could be a relationship that you're having that maybe isn't so great for you anymore, you know? It could be your work. Maybe the atmosphere just isn't for you anymore. You've evolved, you wanna do something different, but it's comfortable, right? Like, it's the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, right? But at the same time, it served a purpose, but you've outgrown it, and maybe you get resentful about that job, but you need to move on. You need to make that
Hmm.
decision. So there's a lot of areas or a lot of ways this can show up in your life. And I think what's most important is that you pay attention to how you're feeling and what it's bringing up in you, because it's just information. It's just feedback. It's you have evolved, or you want to evolve, and you can become that person that you want to become. You You don't have to be resentful. You don't have to be sad. You don't have to be anxious. You don't have to be yelling at your kids. It's like, but you have to make that decision and you have to have the self awareness that it's on you. And this is my soapbox. Like, it's self awareness is everything, everything. And sometimes you're not self aware, but the people in your life are kind of giving you this feedback, and you're like, why are we arguing so much all of a sudden? What? But you have to ask yourself, what responsibility or what role do I play in what's going on? And I don't know. Whew, I could just go down. We could go down like some rabbit holes here, but you know, I love this conversation. I think it's what so many people might need to hear right now. So, is there anything I
Yeah, I
just
love
said that
that
like
it's
brought it up for you?
absolutely. I think that I agree with you. Les Parrott said I went to my undergrad with him and took some of his relationship courses. I've had him on my podcast. He said years ago, awareness is curative. I
Mhm.
love that phrase. It's exactly what you're saying, because if you're not aware of something, then you don't even know it's a problem. And it could be just sneaking in there and affecting your life, and you don't even know because you're not even aware.
Right.
So this first part of what we've been talking about is like examining all the different areas of your life and looking at your life and developing some awareness of like, okay, this is where things are and it's not where I want it to be. But then I love that second part that you said too, which is, well, this is my life and I have been directing it, where I'm not a victim of my own life. I have the ability to change some of these things. And you mentioned something about friendships. I would say several years ago, I've gone through several different iterations of this, but more recently, several years ago, I said, you know what? I want better friendships. I think my friendships are good, but I want better friendships. So I think when I started doing this life vision thing, this is one of the areas of my life that was really important to me. And so I wrote down with each of the different categories, I write a little statement that says, this is where I want to be as a person. And then these are some of the activities or the things that I'll do in order to accomplish that. So if I can share, just as an example, with this area, I said my vision is I want deep, close relationships with friends that are supportive through life. I try to keep it really broad, but the deep and close is important to me. So it's personal, and then we're supportive with each other. And so then I have activities where that I'm going to do, like bullet points under this category, where I say things like I'm going to have regular, and then define that as like weekly activities with friends. Now that's not specific. That's not like I need to do this individual thing. Although some people might have that, like I need to have, a poker night or a book club or a knit night or play sports with people. That's fine, but to me, I just wanted to define it as like every week, this needs to be on my calendar because it's important to me. And then daily communication with friends, whether it's text messages, phone calls, in-person meetings, whatever. And then some of that definition is I'm going to share openly, honestly, and vulnerably with friends. So when I'm reviewing this, I'm asking myself, am I sharing openly, honestly, vulnerably? Are they sharing that? Am I making space for them to do that? So people who take initiative with me, and then people who share open, honestly, vulnerably with me. So these are kind of the definition of where I want that to go. And from there, it's up to me to decide how I want to do that. And that's the thing I like about this plan, is that it's got some definition where you might need definition. Like if you look about my physical health one, it's very specific. It's sleep, diet, exercise in certain quantities and all that kind of stuff. But then ultimately, it's up to me how I want that to look. But like you said, we have the ability to make these changes. And the other thing I love about this life vision plan, because it's sort of looking at a higher level view, it's not looking at I'm going to accomplish this in like a month or in like 4 weeks. It's this is the direction my life is going to go. So this is the lifestyle I'm going to build for myself. And it may take more time than just a couple of weeks for this stuff to happen. And with friendships, for example, with me, that did take a while. I had to really invest in people, and they had to we had to build trust with each other, or as we were deepening those friendships, we had to have some of those conversations and then work through some of that stuff together to have deeper connections. And we did, and that took some time. But because I was motivated and I had this direction, I was able to accomplish that. And that's what I want people to see, is that you have so much more power and influence over your life than you believe you do. You just have to, I think, be focused in the right ways.
Yes, I love that. That's I love that, and I think that is a perfect way. to wrap up this episode, because I could go on for more about this, but I love how you shared. And if people are interested in working with you or coaching with you, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you or to learn more?
Yeah, head over to my website, aaronpotratz.com. I've got a coaching page you can check out from my website there. Send me a message on my contact page, aaron@aaronpotratz.com. And I would love to help anybody that has connected with this and wants to take their life in a different direction, a better direction, or just get their life more in alignment.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Aaron. I'll put all of those links in the show notes. And is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners?
No, I always love to encourage you and your audience, Lisa. You're just somebody who I highly admire and respect. And thank you so much for having me on. I just want to encourage you to continue bringing your light and your joy and your this love that is so important to you to the world. It is very, very clear by anybody that listens to you or is around you that you are accomplishing that everywhere you go. So keep doing what you're doing. The world is a better place because of
Oh,
it.
well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Please note that the therapy show with Lisa Mustard is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and not a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your therapist, doctor, or physician before implementing any suggestions from the show. The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is edited and engineered by Chelsea Weaver. If you're looking to start a podcast or ready to take the editing off of your plate, be sure to visit chelseaweaverpodcasting.com. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.